I mean, I experienced that firsthand when I was signed to, agencies outside of Botswana, and it was my full-time job. I could work as a model, living in Joburg, paying my rent, like, doing everything. And then I would come back home to Botswana and they would be offering me 200 pula for a full day photo shoot.
Yeah.
Like 10% of what that is actually worth.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting, but also very demoralizing to see and to witness. But it's both. I think it is exactly what you're saying, that there is a lack of appreciation for local talent, but I don't even think that is on a governmental or private sector scale. I think even Rona as individuals, we have a lack of appreciation for each other.
Welcome to Moving Humanity Forward podcast. My name is Kathy Malajani. I like to tell people that I am #the Diamond Girl. Yeah, the moniker has changed. You can call me DG like HE. And yes, it does rhyme, but today we have somebody very exciting in studio. Speaking of diamonds, I think there's something exciting that she's got going on that has to do with diamonds, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. Now, my guest is a creative and cultural program manager. She's a storyteller as well as a social impact practitioner. She began her professional journey in the creative sector, working as a television presenter, performing artist, as well as production manager on film and television sets. She also now does cultural creative programming, right? She is the founder of Create Consent Culture. We'll talk a little bit about that. She has served as a program and incubator manager for national and international projects, coordinating partnerships, managing teams, and delivering programs that support entrepreneurship, creative talent development, and community empowerment. I'm talking about the very beautiful Nature Inga. Nature, thank you so much for joining us on Moving Humanity Forward podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always so amazing listening to somebody else go on about you. It's like, I'm doing a lot.
And sometimes you ask yourself, wait,
I always feel like people, and especially like, I mean, you're so professional, amazing, your research is phenomenal, like, but people always talk you up way more than you'll ever talk yourself up. So give an opportunity to actually appreciate yourself and be like, yeah. But thank you. I really appreciate it. What a beautiful introduction.
No, we're very happy to have you here, Nature, and there's quite a lot that we want to talk about. I think let's start off with the storytelling. Let's start off with the cultural dialogue. Let's start with the digital content. Let's start there.
Sure. I mean, it's very interesting. I think I started off in the creative industry. It's something I've always been interested in. And I actually started off as a model.
I was about to say, I knew you as a model, right?
Exactly. Yes. I was very young. I mean, I must have been 11 when I did my first kind of photo shoot, but I professionally and properly started at 16.
Okay.
So something I did really forever, but I was always interested in what was going on behind the scenes. I was always annoying everybody on set. Oh, what's your job? What do you do? Choreography? What? You're the manager? You're the... and always kind of befriending them and asking, oh, can I... and modeling is a lot of waiting. People don't realize. So you get your beautiful makeup done, you wear your clothes, and then you kind of have to sit and wait your turn. And so I'd always be like, oh, can I help you with this? Can I shadow you with this? And I learned a lot about what goes into creating a production.
Yeah.
People watch a runway show and you sit there for all of 10 minutes watching people walk up and down, but the work that went into that is immense. And I just gained such a passion for it. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to curate artistic and creative experiences. I wanted to just learn how to encapsulate and document art in the creative industry. And so after school, I went to get a film and a TV degree. But my focus was in production management and also writing for creative industries. So that was kind of the foundation of me moving into the creative and cultural sphere. And I mean, I've done everything since, from TV presenting to radio presenting to, curating exhibitions to, yeah, I pivot a lot, and I'm happy to do so. But as long as it's within that field and under that umbrella, I always feel very blessed to be able to do what I do.
Yeah. I want to believe that this is a sector, especially in Botswana, that is very fulfilling but very challenging all at once. What's your experience been with it?
Absolutely. I think it also depends a lot when you started and in exactly which art industry you started in. I mean, when I started, there was no fashion industry. That's
Yeah.
just the,
Yeah.
the reality. The only successful model that you could kind of point at and use as a blueprint was, of course, Gaune Karriere,
Yeah.
the amazing and phenomenal. But she wasn't even in the country. So it's not like Nerokana Muleba and like and learn from her. She was, off in New York, Johannesburg, doing her thing, signed to agencies. So it's a lot of having to teach yourself. It's a lot of just learning as you go. There's no courses, and that's how it's been in a lot of different art and media industries in Botswana. I think now it is on the up and coming. There's all these modeling boot camps and all sorts of things now. But even in terms of media, there's fashion design courses in universities, and there's just been so much growth and expansion since I started as a teenager compared to now. But it certainly was challenging, and it's still challenging. I don't think artists are fairly compensated in Botswana. There is no industry standard, so there's also no way to gauge what fair payment even means. There's a lot of policy and legality that's missing from the creative industry. I think because people view the creative industry as a creative, standalone creative, and they don't quite view it as a business, which they should.
I actually want to quiz you a little bit on that because, I fortunately or unfortunately I'm in the same industry, and it's heartbreaking to see that because it almost as if there's no, I don't know if I can say political will, but why do you think that's the case? Because you've just said the policies, the regulations, they're just lacking, and it's at least plus minus 20 years now that the industry, we cannot say it's in its infancy. So why are those things non-existent? I mean, in your mind.
I think we're going to see a huge shift now, and we're already starting to see it in our sports industry. And I think that this shift is going to happen because finally Botswana has been pushed against, we've been put into a corner, and it no longer feels safe to rely on our diamonds.
Yeah.
You were talking
So
about
you're talking
diamonds
about
earlier.
us not having finances properly in place.
Yes, and even if this is only a short pivot and the diamond industry, turns up again, which all of us hope it will. But even if that's not the case, I think that now we are forced to pivot and look into other, diversifying our economy, in short. And when looking at doing that, I mean, I think we always say, the true diamonds of Botswana are its people.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at that, and when all it takes is seeing one successful person, and that person then becomes, almost an ambassador for the entire industry, and it kind of unlocks that sense to say, oh, maybe if we invest in this could whatever, which it's sad that we had to be backed into a corner in order for us to start investing in ourselves and investing in these industries. But it is what it is. It's happened now. So
Wait, but I actually want to back you into a corner a little bit to say, but do you really think we don't value the industry per se, or do we just not value our own in the industry? Because we've seen so many instances where the Botswana version of anything will almost get zero payment and almost no recognition. But literally, even if you just cross the border to South Africa or internationally, the same job will get paid in the hundreds of thousands, So
Yeah.
do you think that it's that we don't value the industry, or just the Botswana version of it?
I think it's both. I mean, I experienced that firsthand when I was signed to, agencies outside of Botswana, and it was my full-time job. I could work as a model, living in Joburg, paying my rent, doing everything. And then I would come back home to Botswana, and they would be offering me 200 pula for a full day photo shoot.
Yeah.
10% of what that is actually worth.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting, but also very demoralizing to see and to witness. But it's both. I think it is exactly what you're saying, that there is a lack of appreciation for local talent. But I don't even think that is on a governmental or private sector scale. I think even Rona as individuals, we have a lack of appreciation for each other. There's this saying in Botswana, there's something like, there's no such thing as a celebrity in Botswana.
I've heard that.
Which I find that really sad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in Botswana that I consider to be celebrities.
Yeah.
And if I see them, out, I walk up to them and I tell them I appreciate their work and their craft. And I understand it's difficult because we are a very small nation. And in other places, you're not going to go to the grocery store and see Rihanna or Beyonce or maybe standing in line to buy bread with you. And maybe because of that, we grow overly familiar with people. We build these parasocial relationships with them that make us feel as if we know them even when we don't.
Yeah.
Even if you only see them on social media, but they're going to the same places as you, they eat at the same places, their kids go to the same schools, it builds this parasocial relationship that makes you feel like you know them and perhaps makes it difficult then to give them their flowers, so to speak, which I think is very sad.
Yeah, and well, the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt, right?
Exactly.
So maybe that's a little bit of that. But let's move on and talk a little bit about how your career went. So starting from modeling, television production, radio presenting at some point, and film and TV production. But it pivoted, and I think you and I clashed paths again. Or crossed paths, not clashed. We didn't clash. We didn't have no cat fights here, okay?
I hope not.
We crossed paths, I think it was last year, and you were wearing your cultural creative programming. So take me through what that was about and what you're doing, because you are still doing that, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Take me through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had another pivot in my career, moving from production management on the sets of TV and film into program management of creative and cultural programs and projects in lots of different capacities. But the specific one that I'm working on at the moment is I'm the project manager of Creation Botswana, which is an amazing program. The first year was fully funded by the French government, and this year it is funded by Lucara Botswana, as well as the French government. And essentially it is an entrepreneurship incubator for local talent, local creative talent. And the true point and purpose is to really bridge local talent with global opportunities and global networks. And actually Creation Botswana is a part of Creation Africa. So there's other countries in Africa where Creation exists, still under the French government, and working just really, really immensely and beautifully. So for the first season, we had 28 fashion designers, 20 of them emerging and 8 of them established. And we took them through a 1-year entrepreneurship incubator. So they experience everything from learning about business model canvas to financial literacy, to branding, to marketing, to technical skills, with international experts coming in on a monthly basis to do public workshops as well as training them. They got to go on an educational excursion to South Africa where they met, David Tlale, Lukhanyo Mdingi, Maklosa, all the greats. And they even got to go to Paris Fashion Week.
Wow.
And really learn from everything that was happening there and just advance their skills and again bridge that gap between our local talent and international markets. So this year for season 2, we're moving away from fashion and moving into jewelry and manufacturing. And so we've just launched it, so the applications are going up soon, and I don't know yet fully, what amazing opportunities the jewelry designers and manufacturers will have, but I know the program, I'm passionate about it, and I just know that it will be absolutely phenomenal.
So when I started off our conversation and I mentioned diamonds and you're talking about the jewelry, so what jewelry exactly are you focusing on? Because I think you had explained that because Botswana is celebrating its diamond jubilee this year, so
Absolutely.
60 was sort of the theme that you went with. What kind of, you said the applications are open, so I want you to, plug the viewer here.
Yes.
What kind of manufacturers or jewelry designers are you working with?
Well, we very, very specifically said jewelry designers and manufacturers.
So they can't just be designers, they also need to be manufacturers.
Yes, even if they are, for example, they've got years of experience in jewelry design, but they're new to manufacturing. But as long as you have some of that technical skill, because the real point and purpose of this is for us to offer opportunities afterwards, for people to grow and for people to potentially pivot or to maybe get apprenticeships or to grow beyond just the design. And so that's an important element of it. So with that manufacturing, it typically will revolve around silver, gold, diamonds. So that's the kind of jewelry design and manufacturing that we're looking for, is the technical manufacturing skills. So it may not specifically include craftsmanship for this year, but we really hope that Creation Botswana will be an ongoing platform, and that many different creative industries in Botswana will get an opportunity to be highlighted at a later stage.
I want to know just how far-reaching this program is. Is it going to be something that is focused in Botswana? I recall, if I'm not mistaken, people from as far as Maung being part of last year's edition, where we were talking fashion designers. What's the scope for this year?
Absolutely. I think the real point is to always be as inclusive as possible. When we talk about empowerment programs and incubators, you want to make sure that Botswana as a whole are, included. And so truly anybody is invited to apply. This cohort will be much smaller than last year's and much more focused. And it may be difficult. Last year there were people, as you say, from Maung. We had people from Francistown, from all over Botswana. But they only needed to come in on a monthly basis, so it was a bit easier. This year, because the skills are so technical and you need to be so refined, we'll be doing more technical work, which means that we really do require people to be closer to GABs. And that's not to disqualify anybody that's out there, but we know usually you have your main job, maybe you're in school, you're a student, maybe you're a mom, and maybe you're not able to give the time to always be in Gaborone the way that we need you to. So I just encourage people to really kind of apply, and once we go through the T's and C's, make the decision of whether you can make that commitment or not. But we absolutely encourage anybody from any corner of Botswana to apply.
All right, we will continue this conversation. Nature has something called the Create Consent culture. We'll talk a little bit about that and the social impact work that she's doing. Do not go anywhere. This is Moving Humanity Forward podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Moving Humanity Forward podcast. Find us on YouTube, on LinkedIn, as well as on TikTok. And then on Facebook, you type MHF podcast to find us. Now, my guest goes by the name Nature Inga. If you haven't heard that name, you are not on social media, okay? Because she does quite a bit of social impact work, if I can call it that. And one of the things you've done, Nature, is do something called the Create Consent culture. I think that's really important, even though I don't know why my tongue is not flowing smoothly with it. What is that? What are you trying to do with that?
I think it can be quite a tongue twister. Create consent culture. So we typically call it CCC. That's the abbreviation.
That makes it easy. Yeah.
There you go, moving forward. But CCC is my passion project. Myself and my co-founder, Lily Maswabi, we started CCC together. And what it is it's a youth impact outreach program that aims to teach consent and to basically build a safer Botswana through consent education. So we know obviously about the statistics in Botswana and how absolutely terrible they are. We have some of the worst gender-based violence statistics in the whole entire world right here in Botswana, which is such a contradiction because we are also the second safest country in Africa. And so it makes you question, Kore, safe for who? How are they judging that safety if this is what the statistics have to say? And so there's so many different ways to go about addressing gender-based violence. And I certainly do not claim that consent education on its own can end the problem. But what I do know is that in communities and societies where consent education is taught from a very young age, it reduces gender-based violence and teenage pregnancy by up to 49 years in only a space of 5 years. So, I mean, by 49% in only a space of 5 years. So that means...
Say that again?
it reduces the rate of gender-based violence and teenage pregnancy by up to 49%.
So almost half.
Almost half. And that is in the entire community and society, whether or not the whole community is attending the lessons. So it makes a huge, huge, huge difference, and in a very short span of time. And in a nation like Botswana, it can be a pro and a con that we have such a small population. But for situations like this, it's such a pro that we have a small population, because that means that we can actually make huge impact, and we can do so very fast.
Yeah.
And I think for all of us, at least people who are around our age, we got to witness it firsthand. And I'm speaking of Muraya's legacy with HIV and AIDS. We grew up in a time where it started off as such a stigma. People were getting fired from jobs, people were getting divorced, it was viewed as this thing, and it was known or believed that it would almost wipe out Botswana. But through this huge national campaign, in the space of 10 to 20 years, Botswana became a beacon and an international example of how these types of pandemics can actually be dealt with and can be treated. And so we've seen it happen before, and we know that it works. And if we truly wanted to, we could do the exact same thing using the exact same strategy, but remodeled for gender-based violence. And in the space of only 10 to 20 years, with our small population, we could see an absolutely pivotal change. And consent education is only one factor. There's so many other things we need to address, first responder, safeguarding, media training. There's so many different, police training. There's lots of different elements. But the point is, we can address all of them. It is more than possible if government and civic engagement work hand in hand to do it. And so consent education for me is the one I'm the most passionate about, because I've always been passionate about children. I've always loved children. The very cheesy and corny, children are our future, but it's true.
They really are.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I believe that children hold the power to just change and to transform. And I feel very blessed to watch the younger generations coming up. And I do actually believe that they'll do better than we did.
We all hope they do, but, and like you said, we have the testimonies, and even now our PMTCT, the prevention of mother to child transmission, is one of the best. I think we were sitting at 99.99% success rate, which is an amazing statistic to have. Yes. But that said, I want to throw something at you, because one of the members of our team keeps highlighting the stories where we see consent gone wrong. And this is something that I'm bringing up because it's come up time and again to say we now have instances where there are women, young girls, who will get with you, give you consent, do everything, and then wake up in the morning and say, if you don't give me X amount of money, this is what's going to happen. And I think that honestly enrages me, because I think it takes the movement backwards. But I want to know if this is something that you've seen, if it's come to your attention, and what you think about it.
It's not something that I've seen. I've seen it being alleged that has happened. And after investigations, it is often proven to not be the case.
Okay.
So what we have to remember is that, of course, false accusations are very serious, but they're only actually true about 1% of the time. We also know that the court system does not actually favor the victim a lot of times. So we see it happening that somebody is proven to be innocent, and then they walk, and the victim is then absolutely crucified by the public.
Yeah.
But sometimes that person is only proven to be innocent because there was a lack of evidence, or because the rape kit suddenly magically disappeared at the police station and we can no longer find it, or because both parties were drunk and now there isn't. But the point is, a court ruling that somebody is innocent does not necessarily mean that somebody was not raped. And that is something that we do have to bear in mind. So at least 98% of the time, the victim or the survivor is telling the truth, and they've just lost a case. Of course, as I say, false accusations are horrible and horrific, and people that do that, should face the legal repercussions. However, I do not believe that we should use a 2% statistic and place it at the center of attention, because it takes attention away from the 98%
Yeah.
statistic.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I just want us to be wary of, when leading these conversations, is that the victim and the survivors should always be placed as truly a number one. It's going back to the conversation about HIV and AIDS, for example, we chose to put condoms in schools. Do we support children and teenagers having sex? Of course not. We don't want them to. But the reality is they're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So if they are going to do it, then they should do it safely. But if 2% of them aren't going to listen to us and they aren't going to wear the condoms, should we make the entire conversation about that 2% that won't do it? Or should we focus on the 98% that will, and prevent those teenage pregnancies and prevent the spread of HIV and, truly create a lasting change?
I think that's very important to put, because statistics, and though that said, our statistics in Botswana are not the best. I think we can agree.
No, they're not.
I think when we were talking about gender-based violence, the last figures that I saw were from a study in 2013. And it's heartbreaking, because you're looking at 30% in 2013 and you wonder 13 years later what the statistics are for women who say they have experienced some sort of molestation. And in Botswana, GBV, like you said, is really a cause of concern. I want to know, in your mind, what you think happened for us to arrive here. How do we go from, like you said, such good statistics with the AIDS pandemic, and given even now how safe we are, we're a peaceful country, the democracy, shining beacon of democracy. How did we get here, in your mind?
It's actually, excuse me, it's actually a very interesting question, and one that we need to do more studies on, or perhaps maybe I need to educate myself on. Maybe the studies already exist. But what I do know is that our neighboring countries don't have the same level of statistics that we do. And yet in Southern Africa, when we look at our sort of cultures, our economies, there's a lot of similarity there. And so you would expect for it to be a regional problem as opposed to just a national one.
Yeah.
And of course, South Africa does have the same problem as well with GBV. But there has to be something very specific to these two nations that is being done differently in other ones, or it is a very cultural, deep-rooted problem that is then ke culture ya rona as Botswana gore go ntse jana. And I think it's evident that we have an extremely patriarchal society. I mean, this is something that we all know culturally. We're even taught and trained to live amongst a patriarchal society from when we're young. But there's just been a pivot of so many different things that really add to that in a very negative way. And we see, things like global pandemics, things like that, they always, increase the rates and the statistics. So I really couldn't tell you exactly why us and what it is specifically. But what I do know is that it has to be a cultural and societal problem, because if it wasn't and it was something regional, our neighboring countries would have similar statistics, and yet they are in a much better position than we are in.
When you look at the GBV and also sexual assault statistics, it really doesn't make sense. Though, I've heard somebody posit to say the girl empowerment movement is part of what caused it, because then you've got an empowered woman versus a man that's not empowered, who cannot speak, who, for himself or communicate. And so when he does end up trying to do that, he does it, physically and violently. Do you think that might be the cause of it?
No, I don't.
No.
I don't think that men have ever not been empowered. So I don't think that empowering women should in any way disempower men. I do agree that when women were, and I mean, the word empowerment can be really misconstrued in so many different ways, but when women were granted rights that we always deserved to have from the beginning of time, and that actually were taken away from us in the first place, when we were re-granted those rights, I think that yes, there should have been a focus on also remodeling what the value of a man is. And I hate to say it like that because I don't believe that human beings should have a value or a whatever on them, but it's not me that's saying that, it's society, right?
Yeah.
And actually it's not just society, it's the patriarchy.
Yeah.
The patriarchy is the one that decided that the value of a man is in what he can provide and in his leadership skills, which is horrific and which is horrendous. And there's a lot of anger around that, but the anger is misplaced because it's not women who are saying that that is all
That a man
that
is
a
or
man
is
is
valued for.
It's the patriarchy that's saying that. And so when women no longer needed to rely on a man for only money and for only resources, what did we start looking for in men? Now we care about your character. Now we care about your kindness. Now we care about if you're a good partner, if you're going to be a good parent, and unfortunately, while women were being trained up to be educated and to do well in the workplace and to step away from only domestic labor, men weren't being taught to maybe start picking up a bit on the domestic labor, maybe start working on yourself more, developing your, so there is that misalliance and misbalance, but I don't think that the blame of it is on women being empowered. I think that the patriarchy will always find a projection, find somebody else to target and somebody else to blame, instead of redirecting the blame back at itself.
So, in your mind, what do we need to do to get to a point where we are in harmony and in balance? Because it almost seems as if we just are in a state of gender war with each other. We have gender wars, and I won't lie to you, 9 out of 10 times when I switch on the radio and say, today we're talking GBV, the first couple of callers are going to be very angry men. So when you talk about anger, it comes, you've got these angry men who are like, oh, you women are always doing this and you're always crying and complaining. And I've always thought it would be, so I promised myself I would not talk about GBV unless it was with a man who was saying we need to stop GBV. Because who else to speak to men to stop GBV? But in your mind, what do we need to do about it?
I think that everybody needs to step away from themselves. The problem is that, of course, when you say men are this, men are that, men are killing us, men are whatever, it's natural, it's human for a man to say, well, I've never killed anyone. Well, I've never raped anyone. Well, it can't be all men. My friends don't do that. My father doesn't do that. And to become defensive. But if we step away from ourselves as individuals, then you can look at something as a system as opposed to you as an individual. And the reality is, a lot of men, and I'll speak about race because we are in Africa, right? But a lot of men do understand the system when it comes to race, but then they struggle to understand it when it comes to gender. If you are talking about police killing black people in America, and you're having a conversation with people and there's men there, and someone says, F the police, right? Not a single man will step in and say, oh, but it's not all police. Come on, not all policemen are bad. Because they understand, of course, that we know it's not all policemen, but they understand, no, it's a system, and the system is rigged against black people. And as black men, they can understand that because the system is rigged against it and they see it in their day-to-day lives, right? But then when women are trying to explain that we are facing the same thing, that same system of race, lorna in gender, there's a system that is like that. And you have to separate, when we say men are, think of the system, think of the patriarchy as opposed to you as a man. If we say men are raping, you don't need to say not all men. You don't need to say it's not just you doing it. We know, we understand that fully. But start thinking of it as the system so that you don't have to, you can have that separation and look at things from a fair point of view. The same way that you view race and the same way that you understand that there is a racial system that is unfair, that racism exists, that all of these things exist, you have to look at gender the same way and understand that there are those struggles. It may not be you as an individual, it may not be your best friend or your father, but you have to admit that the system of men. We see the statistics, they are there. You cannot ignore them, and you cannot step away from them. So if you are willing to educate yourself on it, the same way as you would with the history of race and how it began and how it was used against us, if you were to do that about gender, not putting your own personal, emotions in the mix, I think that would save us a lot of debates and fights and arguments, because, we don't hate men as people, as individuals, but we do hate the system that has been set up, and that a lot of us are still living by and we're feeding the system, whether knowingly or unknowingly. So it's something all of us, women included, are feeding that system.
Yeah.
So we all just need to self-reflect and, tackle the issue together as opposed to fighting each other.
I think that's very important. Nature, I think we are going to run out of time, but one of the things that has come through is just that you seem to have this belief, this deep belief that culture can actually be a very powerful driver as far as putting in place behavior change. So I want to know, as far as especially with regards to this and just building a safer, more compassionate community, what are some of the things that we can be doing, and how can each of us, because you've said let's self-reflect, how do we then act? Because I don't think our thoughts alone are enough. What can we do? What small actions and steps can we take, and how can we use the culture or creatives to do that?
Good question. I do believe that culture can change an entire society and an entire country, and we decide what culture is, but we forget that. So as we grow and as we evolve, our culture should grow and evolve with us. They say when you know better, you do better. A lot of us, as I say, have fed into the system, whether knowingly or unknowingly. But if we keep learning and bettering ourselves, then we can leave old habits behind and take on newer and healthier habits for ourselves, for our children, for our communities, for the nation at large. And that's really what we aim to do at Create Consent Culture. I think if everybody just as an individual educated themselves on consent, and even if you're the type of person who has given up on our generation, our this, or whatever, but then if you say, okay, nah, I'm an old dog, I can't be taught new tricks, but banake.
Yes.
I'm going to teach them about consent. I'm going to teach them about, you will have played your part and you would have made a difference. And if all of us just play our part in a small way, it really does make such a huge difference. So in terms of our children specifically and keeping our children safe, I mean, the statistics are horrible for women, but for children, it is absolutely heartbreaking. And it's always overlooked because, again, our culture, a lot of times when things are happening within the family, we
sweep it under the rug.
Exactly. And that's part of our culture. So if you're someone who's patriotic and proud of Botswana's culture, is that a part of our culture that you can genuinely say that you're proud of? Or do you agree that we need a new culture and that we all need to play a role in creating that new culture? And if you do agree, then, please join us and help us. It takes every single individual, even if you don't have children, just following the page, Create Consent Culture, supporting us, sharing it with a friend that does have children, sharing it with a school that you may know, or, anything of the like. It goes a long way. And I do genuinely believe from the bottom of my heart that this organization can change Botswana for the better.
I love the sound of that, and I want to get you to close off by just sharing with our viewer how they can find out more and where they can go in order just to, like you said, get to know more, share more. And then do you have anything coming up so that we can be part of it? Are you working on any projects that we can rally behind and support?
Absolutely. So to support us, please do follow us on TikTok at Create Consent Culture and also on Facebook at Create Consent Culture BW. And we always have workshops. Most of our workshops are free, or we ask for a very small contribution that actually then goes towards helping us continue to give free workshops. So if you just follow our pages, you will see when the next ones are. We had one just last week, Friday, which was from children aged 6 to 12, but we changed the age groups all the time. So Sometimes we do it for teens. Sometimes we do it even for tertiary and university level. We also have workshops for teachers and for parents as well, so that you can actually learn to have these day-to-day conversations with your children at home and make them the absolute norm. Your children should be learning from you and not from their peers. I mean, they will inevitably learn from their peers, but hopefully by the time they do the basics, they already know, right from wrong, and they are firm in their beliefs and can't be moved or swayed. So, please do follow us and stay tuned for more workshops and opportunities that are coming up. We've got a lot going on this year.
I love it. And we definitely will follow you and keep checking in to see what new developments you have. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Kathy.
And that's how we close off this episode of Moving Humanity Forward podcast. Remember to find us, type Moving Humanity Forward podcast. We are on LinkedIn, we are on YouTube, as well as on TikTok. And then you can find us by typing MHF podcast on Facebook. My name is Kathy Malajani. We'll see you next week.